Sunday evenings at 6.
Making America Great Again with no apologies. Join me, Sebastian Gorka, for America First tonight at 10 on AM 560, The Answer.
Dan and Amy, you want to hear from Jim Comey. You don't want him to ever go away, do you?
No, he reminds me of a high school drama. Because he's so, takes pictures of himself, so picturesque in the woods with captions that say so many questions in regards to the Mueller report. He's just very self-serving and very fragile. I still think that interview he did with Lester Holt last night, he still seems injured. Like he's a little, his Indian name would be Injured Bird.
Well, it was nice that Lester Holt was able to get him out of the woods and back into civilization to answer some questions about the Mueller report, get his reaction as one of the leading critics, along with former CIA Director John Brennan, former DNI James Clapper, and then obviously the entire D.C. press corps that were spinning conspiracy theories about the Russian collusion investigation from the beginning. And frankly, to their credit, they're consistent. They continued to spin those same conspiracy theories, and they've just added a layer. Bill Barr's involved now, or they're offering very creative interpretations of every word in the Barr summary letter, as Jim Comey did when he sat down with Lester Holt. The one thing that's clear, though, to Jim Comey from the Barr letter, one thing that's clear is he and his colleagues at the senior levels of the FBI have been exonerated.
No, I actually see it the other way. It establishes, I hope, to all people, no matter where they are on the spectrum, that the FBI is not corrupt, not a nest of vipers and spies, but an honest group of people trying to find out what is true. And that's what you see here. And that's why it'll be important to read the entire report. But based on what I've seen, this is a good thing.
Although he couldn't hide his disappointment that Mueller didn't conclude that President Trump had obstructed justice, made no conclusion on that topic. He wasn't indignant. He wasn't criticizing Mueller for failing his job as a prosecutor the way that Dershowitz did. He was just, sad.
The idea that a special counsel wouldn't reach the question and hand it to the political leadership doesn't make sense. I'm not prejudging it. I'm just saying it doesn't make sense on its face.
And then to Trump's witch hunt characterization of the investigation for months and months on end, as it continued for months and months on end. Should have never been this investigation. Jim Comey responded with a fictional analogy.
Close your eyes. Again, change the names. Let me make one up for you. The Iranians, this is totally made up, the Iranians interfere in the election to help elect Barack Obama because they think they'll get a better nuclear deal from him. And during that election, an Obama aide meets with the Iranians and talks about the dirt they have that will help Obama get elected. And the FBI finds out about that. We should not investigate that? And then President Obama's national security advisor lies to the FBI about his contacts with the Iranians. And then the president, Obama, asked me to drop an investigation of that and then fires me and says, I was thinking of the Iranian thing. And then he invites the mullahs to the Oval Office and tells them that FBI director was a real nut job. I lifted a lot of pressure by firing him. Who on earth doesn't think the FBI should investigate that?
All right. For more on this, we need somebody with creative chops, at least as good as Jim Comey. And we've got that person in Hollywood screenwriter Andrew Klavan. His podcast, Another Kingdom, is in season 2. Of course, also, if you haven't seen it yet, see the movie that he wrote, Gosnell, The Trial of America's Biggest Serial Killer. He wrote the screenplay. Andrew Klavan, thanks so much for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Thank you. You're too kind to compare my creative abilities to James Comey's. I
thought you would appreciate that compliment. So what about his analogy as the basis to justify everything that has transpired with respect to Mueller's investigation over the last 2 years?
If that had happened and he had investigated, bugged people in the Obama campaign when Obama was running against George W. Bush on the basis of Oppo research from George W. Bush, the press itself would have taken him out, tarred and feathered him, and thrown him in the Potomac, and then pelted his body with stale vegetables as he floated downstream. I think it is a good analogy in the sense that if for just a minute you back off and think about the FBI investigating Obama just on the basis of the things he said, just saying, well, we should spread the wealth around. Oh, my goodness, that sounds like communism. Let's investigate that. If he was hanging out with Bill Ayers, a former terrorist, let's investigate that. If he was going to a Jeremiah Wright's church for 20 years where they were damning America and this guy was trying to infiltrate his way into the top echelons of power in the United States, and James Comey had said, oh, we better tap his phones and investigate that. James Comey would not just be out on his ear; he would be facing prison, as I believe James Comey should. There's just no question about it. This was a conspiracy to take down a president based on Oppo research. It was started on Oppo research and the fact that they didn't like Donald Trump's idea that he could get along with Vladimir Putin. That was basically it. That's what they had. And the idea that a comment here or a comment there was enough to start an FBI investigation into an opposition party's presidential campaign is out of a tin pot dictatorship from South America, not from North America. It's really just appalling that this guy is so surrounded, so swathed in his own sanctimony that he can't see himself in the mirror anymore. This is really, these guys have got to say these things because and the press has got to defend itself because this is really a scandal about the way the Obama administration operated and about the way it was covered by the press. It's not a scandal about the Russian collusion thing. It is a scandal about the fact that for 8 years the press turned a blind eye as Barack Obama transformed the federal government into a Chicago-style Democrat machine, just like we're seeing, in operation in the Jussie Smollett case. And he transformed the IRS into a political tool. He transformed the State Department into a cover-up of his Benghazi malfeasance. He transformed the Justice Department into an investigative arm that infiltrated police departments around the country and finally infiltrated the opposition candidate's campaign. And he did this all while the press went scandal-free, scandal-free, scandal-free. What a wonderful scandal-free administration. That's the thing that is so shocking about this, is how complete the destruction of the American press's credibility is. And, don't mistake me on this, because we need a good press. We need a press that holds powerful people to account, whether they're Republicans or Democrats. But you can't have a press that operates like late-night comedy shows and only attacks one side and then suddenly goes dormant when the other party is in power. And that's what we've had, and that's what this scandal is. This is a scandal about the way the Obama administration was covered and the way they reacted when they found that, like Gollum in Lord of the Rings, they were invisible. They were like nobody could see what they were doing. So they thought, oh, well, then we can use the IRS. We can lie through the State Department. We can use the DOJ to investigate people. And they only got caught because Trump, by an incredible fluke, won the election. And that's what's happening. And James Comey can spin that all he wants. But that's the story.
Well, you'd mentioned Jussie Smollett. Of course, it's a huge story here in Chicago, but it's all around the world and the country, I think. What was your reaction when you heard that the charges against him, all 16 counts of disorderly conduct, were dropped?
Well, listen, let me say first that as a city and as people, I love Chicago. I always enjoy being there, and I enjoy the people there. But you guys have got a problem with basically one-party government. Because
what?
Don't tell Dan this. He doesn't know yet.
We're still in the probationary stage, Andrew. It's only been 100 years.
Out here in Hollywood, every single Hollywood conservative I've ever met has been from Chicago. They're all refugees. And they basically say, once you've seen Chicago, you'll never be a Democrat again.
Say hi to David Mamet for us. We miss him.
David Mamet, perfect example. Gary Sinise, Malkovich. I mean, they all came out of there running for their lives. From here, speaking as an outsider, it seems like Democrat versus Democrat. It seems that Kim Foxx, the lady who is now the state attorney, is a wired up, arm of the Obama administration. She was affected by an Obama crony coming to her and saying, go easy on this guy, let him off. It's not just that she let him off. It's that his records vanished from the computers. They're sealed. He's free. In a single leap, Jussie's free. But on the other side, it does strike me that the kind of malfeasance, or at least secretiveness, that went on in Rahm Emanuel's administration in holding back the dash cam video in the Laquan McDonald shooting is what got a lady like Kim Foxx in power in the first place.
Yeah, that's right.
And so you have this completely dysfunctional government only answerable to its own party. And if you don't have two parties in there to keep the other side honest, you're just going to have this Democrat machine. It's what I think has happened in Chicago, and I think that culture is what happened in Washington during the Obama administration.
I've got a physics question for you on the Smollett case. Van Jones said, that when Smollett was indicted, the problem here is that Smollett is an icon. He's a hero. He is to homophobia what Jackie Robinson was to race. And so my question is, how far up your own ass does your head have to be to say something like that?
The sad thing is when that first season of Empire came out, I was absolutely swept away by the great musical talent in it, including Jussie Smollett's talent. But I think one of the things that we're seeing here, hopefully, is that our elites have kind of failed us. And one of the ways they've failed us is by using their celebrity in ways that it shouldn't be used. Because you can sing, because you can dance, because you can act, doesn't mean you know a damn thing about politics. And when you stand in front of a podium with your Oscar in your hand and you tell half the country that they're idiots because they don't think like you better be awfully sure that you've got your own ducks in a row and that you really know what you're talking about and that your own life doesn't bear examining. I mean, the other day, Barbara Streisand, she apologized for it, but she came out and she said, Michael Jackson wasn't so bad. His sexual needs were sexual needs, and these little children he was abusing, they wanted it so bad. They had a great time, and it didn't really affect them that much. Here's a woman who's been talking to us about politics all these years, and that's who she is. If those words come out of your mouth, it's time to clam up. You should have clammed up 40 years ago because you have not got the moral compass. Wonderful voice. She's got a wonderful voice. She has not got the moral compass that's required to understand where the country should go politically. She should have shut up and sung, and that to me is true of our elites right down the line. The James Clappers who lied before Congress, the James Comeys who leaked classified information, the John Brennans who voted for communists, all of these guys who have paraded themselves as the elites, it's time for them to go, and it's time for us to disappear from TV and stop telling us what we should do, because I would rather listen to a steel worker in Pennsylvania tell me what he needs than listen to any of these guys tell us what we need.
He is Andrew Klavan, podcaster. Another Kingdom is the podcast. He's on season 2. Also the screenwriter for Gosnell, The Trial of America's Biggest Serial Killer. If you haven't seen that, you got to go to Amazon and download that and see it. Andrew Klavan, thanks so much for joining us as always. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
You're listening to Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy